Hello, welcome back to Deep 404. Just want to talk a little bit about what's been going on around Israel the last couple of days. The Houthis from Yemen are continuing to have a large impact in the region, with Maersk, one of the world's largest shipping lines, reporting that they are going to continue to reroute their shipping away from the Red Sea. Get a map up here so I can just have a look at some things here. This comes after reportedly the US had said to Maersk that they would provide protection for the Maersk shipping line through the Red Sea through here and down here. However, it appears that the threat is considered too big that the Houthis are presenting at the moment, and Maersk is not taking the chances with that, and so they are in fact going to reroute their traffic from the Red Sea around the Cape, right around Africa. The US itself, its alliance that Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin a week or so ago declared they were putting together with 20 nations, appears to be faltering. There is a report today that there is going to airstrikes will be taking effect against Yemen, and this will be done by the UK, the US, and a third party, which many are thinking is likely to be France. That seems to be sort of taking the headlines. The actual shipping alliance that was going to be protecting the fleets with the 20 nations doesn't seem to have arisen. Some of the nations who were reportedly part of that alliance have come out publicly and said that while they are operational in this area and are providing, perhaps either providing protection for their own shipping or are involved in pre-existing agreements to support and protect shipping in the region, they are not actively involved in this new Prosperous Guardian initiative that Lloyd Austin announced. There were 8 of the 20 nations who said they did not wish to be named at all. So the US seems to be struggling to project power and protect the Red Sea shipping. This is what is now leading to the recent reports and the talking of a likely missile strike against Yemen. Just looking at our map here. So this is the Red Sea here, the Gulf of Aden here, and Yemen is in this area around here. Now, there are large numbers of American warships in the area already, 2 carrier strike fleets in the area. And so the Yemen positions will be well known and already ready targeted by the US. Strikes there, if they do happen, will be an escalation and will likely lead to further attacks by Yemen. Yemen did reportedly strike a Maersk ship yesterday. So their attacks in the area continue. This map here is a few days old, but it shows 17 or 18 incidents involving the Houthis in the Red Sea area in the last month. If we look at the map here of shipping, you can see that through the Red Sea here, there is not a great deal going on through here at this stage. The increased costs that is being incurred on shipping primarily to Israel is playing a factor in this conflict, and this is exactly what the Houthis are looking for here, really. They are demonstrating how to wage asymmetric warfare from the position of the the underdog, I guess you would consider them in any conflict here. A small number of forces and limited weapons, yet they are able to impose economic pressure upon Israel by stopping trade through the Red Sea, or at least slowing it to a large extent, such that anything that goes to and fro Israel is delayed by a couple of weeks if it needs to travel around Africa, and has expenses added to it, of course. In Gaza itself, in here, there are also challenges for the Israelis here. There are reports that the area of Beit Hanoun Hamas has reassumed control of this area. Control of these areas, I think it's a difficult word to define exactly, given that through these areas of Gaza there are tunnel networks which Hamas are able to use. So while the Israeli Defense Forces may be in an area, as to how much of it they actually, or how well they control the area, is up for debate. There is some video available at the moment, again showing hand-placed explosives being placed onto merkava tanks by Hamas fighters. The Hamas fighters are just literally popping up out of a hole in the ground, shoulder-width wide hole, popping up, seeing a tank, placing an explosive charge on the tank, igniting it, or setting its timer, and then running and just jumping back into the ground and disappearing, and then the explosive devices going off on the tank. Part of this is perhaps due to the fact that the Israeli tanks seem to be operating in a weakened position, and this seems to be maybe for a number of reasons. There's, again, video coming out showing Israeli tanks with the trophy missile defense system on them, which is meant to protect them from incoming RPGs and that sort of thing, not operating, just not failing to detect. These systems and the explosion they cause off the side of a tank to try and engage an incoming projectile is something which may be leading to infantry not closely supporting the tanks. So the infantry don't want to be near to one of these tanks if an incoming RPG comes in and then the trophy system goes off because of the fragmentation, explosion and fragments that will be flying around, and so they're not giving that close infantry support to the tank, which is then leaving the tanks exposed to these attacks where someone just pops up out of the ground and places an explosive charge on them. The explosive charges, there are videos shown how well they operate. In one video, one of these was placed against 5 or 6 plates. Each plate looked to be about 2 inches, 5 centimeters thick, and the explosive looked to have got through about 5 of those, I suppose, perhaps not through the 6th one, or punching a sort of fist-size hole through to begin with, and then ending up with something, I don't know, maybe an inch and a quarter diameter hole blown through. But if that explosive has made that through the tank, that's enough to then kill the people inside the tank or disable the tank. So the Israeli troops not supporting the tanks with infantry around them, leading to them being attacked by Hamas. Again, there are a number of reports of attacks against Israeli forces in the last couple of days where they have lost a number of troops to Hamas fighters. The Israelis in a tough position, trying to advance through areas where there are buildings, there is rubble. The Hamas fighters know the area very well. They have access to tunnels and know where they are. So they are in an advantage in that urban guerrilla street fighting because they have a more of an element of surprise, whereas the Israeli ground forces are walking in, advancing, and without the ability to use the tunnels. In not all areas can they get the tanks in, because of the airstrikes that have taken place have destroyed buildings, making it difficult for the tanks to move. So the Israeli forces, perhaps hesitant in some cases to progress because they know that they're at some advantage and they don't have tank support with them. Also, reports coming out that some Israeli pilots have been declining to engage and bomb in some areas or strike in some areas because they have the concern that there are Israeli ground forces in that area, and that if they were to engage to kill Hamas, they would also be killing Israeli forces in that area. I can't confirm that. I'm obviously not on the ground, but that's some of the reporting that I'm seeing. There may even be some hesitancy amongst now the Airforce to attack in some areas because they're concerned of friendly fire attacks. This, of course, leads to the comments that have come out since the 7th of October that a large number, some reports, very large numbers of those Israelis killed in the first day of the Hamas attack were in fact killed by Israeli defense forces and Israeli air forces, where there's talk of a Hannibal directive being called, where the Israelis don't want to be put in a position where they have where Hamas have taken a large number of Israeli hostages. And so for that reason, the Israeli defense forces will kill anyone within the area, including Israelis, so that they can't be taken hostage. So if there was a group of Hamas with some hostages at that stage, and a helicopter gunship may have just fired a rocket at all of them and killed all of them. There certainly seems to be video showing that type of thing happening, and a lot of reports of that happening. Those reports now coming also from Israeli paramedics, first responders, and some elements of the military. So, yeah, Israel, I think, having a hard time in Gaza in terms of their goal of destroying all of Hamas. There are reports from Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, that they are being successful and they have destroyed 8,000 Hamas fighters. Now, reportedly, there was something like 40,000 Hamas fighters. So in 3 months of fighting, they have managed to get rid of a fifth, perhaps, if those numbers are correct. I don't know exactly how they tell a Hamas fighter from someone who's not a Hamas fighter, given they're not wearing uniforms, that type of thing. But anyhow, if you take that number, still, that's 3 months of fighting through this area, a massive loss of support for Israel around the world because of the targeting of civilians, indiscriminate bombing of apartment blocks and hospitals. So this conflict has not been successful for Israel in terms of meeting their objectives or enhancing the Israeli position and support for Israel globally. There have continued to be mistakes made. Israel has reportedly yesterday, Israeli Defense Forces have fired upon a UN convoy which was attempting to deliver military aid. The report is that the defense forces in the area had not been made aware of a change to the safe route, and so when the UN vehicles travelled the way that they thought they should be travelling, the defence forces thought they shouldn't, and so they fired upon them. This comes a week after the 3 Israeli hostages who managed to escape from Hamas and who were shirtless and reportedly waving some sort of a flag to indicate safety, and were shot on sight by the Israelis. So a lot of activity which is not the sort of thing that Israel wants to be demonstrating, to be seen to be a thoughtful and considerate participant in this conflict. The Israelis also looking to engage more heavily with Hezbollah in an area just north of the border of Israel, up here, Bint Jbeil in southern Lebanon. There have been Israeli Air Force strikes on this area reported overnight. Israel playing a very dangerous game with Lebanon in this area, trying to walk a balance between disarming and de-strengthening some of the Hezbollah forces along the border, while not going too far so as to fully engage Hezbollah in a conflict with Israel. As we're saying, Israel struggling at this stage to show success in the conflict with Gaza. If Hezbollah in the north were to attack and engage Israel in full force with their 150,000 plus missiles, guided missiles and rockets they have at their disposal, plus their some of their highly trained infantry brigades, and then just their other supporting fighters, Israel would then be in a very precarious position with Hezbollah attacking from the north, and a large amount of damage could be done to Israel by those Hezbollah rockets. Certainly, Israel would inflict a lot of damage on southern Lebanon and no doubt on Beirut itself. And there is conflict between Hezbollah and the leadership of Beirut, who not wanting to come under attack because of Hezbollah's activities, but also not happy with what's happening in Gaza at the hand of the Israelis. So Israel is playing a very fine line there. Also, reports that Russian air defense systems have shot down Israeli missiles in Syria. Now, it's not clear as to who was manning the Russian air defense systems, if this was Syrians or if it were Russians. If it were Russians, this is a big piece of news, and I guess we'll learn more about this in the coming day or so. But perhaps more likely, it is Syrians using it in Syria, using these Russian air defense systems to shoot down Israeli missiles. But overall, the area, the conflict here continuing to heat up. If we do see the US engage Yemen in direct conflict, you can then expect to see far more attacks on any shipping that is traveling through the Red Sea area. Possibly even attacks by the Yemenis into or over Saudi Arabia into Israel, and them looking to find a way to get Saudi Arabia to see the Yemeni position somewhat, and perhaps find some way to get Saudi Arabia to allow them easier access to Israel. At this stage, Saudi Arabia doesn't seem to want to do that, but Saudi Arabia have been slowly stepping back from the relations that they were growing with Israel. Many considering, in fact, Hamas's attack at the time it happened because of the normalization of relationship between Israel and Saudi Arabia. There has been talk that Saudi Arabia has denied Yemen the ability to fire missiles over Saudi Arabia towards Israel. But we'll wait. Just wait and see what happens in that area. Also, a lot of talk from the US and the UK now about how Iran must be stopped, how Iran's nuclear enrichment is heating up. Lindsey Graham, the US Senator, talking about wiping sections of Iran off the map. clearly the neocons or the hawks looking for war with Iran, looking to remove Iran as a power in the Middle East, putting Israel back as being the primary power in that area and taking its major threat away. Again, Israel in a very precarious position if they've somehow managed to get this all wrong and Hezbollah do join the fight, and then Syria join in, and someone like Jordan perhaps change allegiances and also join in, then they'll find themselves in real trouble, and the US in a tough position then of having to either decide that it's time to stop their support of Israel, which is very difficult for the US to do for numbers of many reasons, or committing to it in a large way and then seeing how they go in a remote conflict in the Middle East where they won't have support from Iraq or the ability to position bases in Iraq while they attack Iran. It's likely that Turkey will then get involved. The US would then struggle to position themselves anywhere near the region, which makes it tough for them. Tough for them to put any boots on the ground. If Saudi Arabia, for example, decide that they're aligning with the Arab and Muslim nations, the US then in a tough position too, because they need to project strength. If they can't get on the ground, it's very difficult to do that. Yes, they've got their aircraft carrier fleet, but they're difficult to maintain, and they can come within range of weapons that that Turkey would be able to provide, or Iran would be able to provide, or if it got to the stage where Russia decided it was going to get in and support. I'm not saying that they would, but if they did, certainly their MiG-31s and their missiles can reach the any of the US aircraft carriers that might be operational in the area. All right, I might leave that there for this quick update. I may look to do a live stream over the next day or so and just talk generally about what's happening in Ukraine and the Middle East and Africa. So if you see that online, drop into the live stream. Be fun to have a chat with a few of the viewers. Have a happy new year, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.